Hey, welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm your host, Sal Interdonato, here with my co-host, Steve Anderson. The Black Knight Nation podcast is sponsored by Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon is a company ran by former Army football player, former Army football coach, former Army, also served in the Army, Joe Ross. We thank Joe Ross and Higher Echelon. They're on board for another year sponsoring this Black Knight Nation podcast. We really appreciate their support. Without them, we're not here right now. So we're gonna please, before we get going with our guest, check out our YouTube channel at Black Knight Nation. Check out blackknightnation.com and all our socials. And we'll get our guest in right now, Scott Flanick. Scott, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
No doubt. So Scott, a couple weeks ago, some big news. You were taken by the New Jersey Generals in the USFL draft. Talk about that. Talk about what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, so it started back in January. I went down to Dallas for the Gridiron Showcase that they do every year, and it used to be just for college guys coming right out, but they recently started doing a free agent one as well. So I went down and worked out. I got into it from my snapping coach, Jackson Cook and Mike McCabe. They're with the one-on-one kicking organization, and Coach McCabe got me into the gridiron. So I flew down and was lucky enough to open some eyes at that workout and talk to the USFL there. And they sent me the initial contract like a few weeks later, signed all that, got the green light from my agent and from like the Army side of things that like, hey, this is something I'd be allowed to do. And then on the draft, I was sitting in my office, rapidly scrolling on Twitter, like waiting to see who the snappers were going to be taken. And then it was like round 35, and then my name was the first one to pop up. So it was like really exciting experience. I actually jumped up and hugged one of my squad leaders. He was pumped for me, so it was good.
So it didn't come as a surprise to you, really, right?
So I didn't know how many like snappers were in the draft, how many guys they had looked at. I was kind of like in the dark on all that. I knew if I had a shot, the Generals were going to be the biggest team that I had a shot with. So Coach Riley was actually my uncle Mike Kislak's head coach when he played for the San Antonio Riders back in the World League days. Wow. So it was really cool. And then also a big part of me getting the shot was John Peterman. He's one of the big personnel guys for the league. And he was the guy that helped my uncle get into the NFL. So I had some like family connections that really helped. And on top of that, both my Uncle Mike and my Uncle Dave were both at the Gridiron, like supporting me, getting film for me so that I could post it on like my YouTube link and everything, just helping me get in front of the right eyes at the right time.
So Scott, did you like always? So you're a platoon leader right now at JBLM.
Yeah.
All right. You're serving in the infantry. How often do you kind of balance the infantry lifestyle versus long snapping lifestyle?
So for me, it's like the biggest battle I fight is like the distance running as opposed to like explosive movements and like the sprinting, power cleans and stuff like that. Because like snapping is a big explosive movement. So just trying to balance those two. Like I'm not a strong distance runner. I'll be the first one to admit that, but I'm kind of steady Eddie. Like I get that pace and I just keep it the whole time. And then the biggest thing for me though is like it's nice having designated time every morning, and it's kind of fun because I get to take my squads and kind of take them through like some football type workouts as far as like sprints, or we get like one sports day a month where we'll throw something a little fun in there for them. So just like wasn't too hard to balance as far as physically. The biggest challenge I've had up here is I don't really have anybody to snap to. So I've been kind of like finding different ways to keep myself snapping and like working out and consistent. Luckily my body has like pretty good muscle memory, so I haven't had to like worry too much every time I've gone and just kind of like done it live. It's worked out. So
that's good. And like you said, I mean, it always helps to have somebody advocate for you that knows the right connections. Did you always know from West Point this was going to be something that you were going to continue to pursue, or is it kind of like, I'm going to do infantry, and if the opportunity arises, I'll do it? Or is this something that you continued to pursue once you graduated? You knew this was one of the paths that you were going to continue to try to commit to.
Yeah, no, this is definitely something I was fully bought into and committing to, especially being one of those specialized positions. I didn't really get too beat up at school with snapping and all that. And then the Army, like, it's not the best thing for your body, but if you do the right recovery and you take care of yourself, it's pretty easy to stay in good shape. So it hasn't really hindered me there. IBOLC, it was really convenient being where I was, because where my coach is based out of is in Birmingham. So I was only a 3-hour drive away. So every weekend I'd be hopping in, and it was weird because like COVID had just like kind of let us go outside like the radius and get into that normal radius for the weekends. So everything just kind of fell into place. And I would drive up 3 hours every weekend. I met some buddies up there that I was able to stay with. One of them's actually on the Houston Gamblers. He's their kicker, Nick Vogel. And then his roommate was Kyle Kramer, who's a great punter. But I used to stay with them. I'd drive up Friday night. We'd wake up Saturday morning. We'd go train. And then Sunday morning, we'd wake up and I would go coach high school and middle school kids on how to snap. So it was kind of twofold for me. I was able to work out with a lot of cool dudes. I've snapped to AJ Cole, the Raiders punter, as well as Blake Gillikin, the Saints punter. I wasn't lucky enough to work out, but he was always around with Ty Long from the Chargers. And then Stephen Flintoff, he's on the British Columbia Lions. So he's their punter. So I got to snap with him and just like a bunch of dudes. It was just nice to be around that level. And it kind of opened my eyes of like, am I actually where I think I am, or is it not quite there? And that was just like a really like eye opener for me of like, you know what, maybe like I really can compete at this level. So for me, that was like a great experience.
Scott, I'll have you know that I was an IBOLC instructor at one point, and I'll tell you this right now. I could not imagine for what I put the lieutenants through, right? I mean, we changed the entire the entire you morph, right? It's like a full morph,
100%.
body morph, mentality morph that we try to make these lieutenants go through. You're not at your commissioning source anymore. You know, we try to beat it in the guy's head. You're not a soccer player anymore. You're not a football player anymore. You're not this. The only thing that matters is being the best infantry officer that you can be for the soldiers you're going to eventually lead. And look, there's a lot of long distance running. I'm a big guy by trade as well. So long distance is my thing, but I continuously work at it. So I feel you there on that. So I understand having been through IBOLC, essentially pre-Ranger, right? And then instructing it, which I was made it even harder than when I went through it. That kind of commitment, it'll make you realize if it's worth it to you or not. So obviously you had some supporting cast, some supporting leadership. I would have told guys, go for it, man. Like if you need to break out early on Fridays, same kind of deal. Cause we're talking 1% of people, less than 1% of people ever have the ability to even, walk on that type of field. So really cool that you had that drive to, because 3-hour drive every weekend, every other weekend, twice a month, can be a lot. So that's good that you had a good supporting cast around you down there at Benning.
Yeah, I a promise I had made to myself in the beginning too is I was never gonna let me chasing football take away from what I would gain from the military. So actually, like, I don't even know if my chain of command was really aware of like everything I was doing on the weekends as far as like where I was working out. I'd mentioned to them a few times. So they knew I was doing it, but like it wasn't this thing where like I was cutting out or anything. Like I was there until everybody else was there. And as soon as we got off, I would go do my thing for the weekend, come back Sunday night.
So you weren't just at, the what is it, Cannon Brew Pub and
right.
And what was it?
Chattahoochee.
Huh?
Chattahoochee.
Yeah, Chattahoochee. You didn't. So you were out training on weekends versus hanging out downtown Columbus, huh? Maybe a couple Auburn trips. Maybe a couple Auburn trips in there.
So I actually never went to Auburn, but Birmingham's not.
No,
Birmingham's not a bad.
Yeah.
So
That's good. So I hate to back up a little bit, but what interests you to come to Army in the first place?
So it was really funny you asked that, because I remember a specific conversation I had with my dad when I was in high school, and it was like my senior year, and we were looking at schools. I didn't really know where I wanted to go. I knew what I wanted to study. I wanted to do some form of engineering because this math was like my really strong suit. But for me, it was when we got to the fall, like after my season, I talked to my head coach, and he was going on a visit there. And my dad had mentioned me. He's like, "You ever thought about like West Point?" And I was like, "No, I haven't. Like, honestly, like I never even thought to look there," which was weird because I only lived like 45 minutes away. And my parents are in Montgomery, New York, so it's like really close. And a couple months later, talking to my head coach, like, "Hey, coach, like I want to play in college." Like, I thought I was gonna be a baseball guy, and my senior year changed that for me. He was like, "Well, we're going to Army next week, so let me call and see if we can get you on that visit." Which the guy that was going on the visit originally ended up going to Navy, which was pretty funny.
Mike Martin, right?
Yeah, Mike Martin.
Sounds like a loser.
Another guy went to Buffalo, Matt Mallory. Unfortunately, had some things happen with him there. He wasn't able to continue playing. It was a personal decision he made, which I fully support him. And then I was all ready because I was going to get offered by Coach Ellerson. I was really excited, and then they all got released, and I was like, cool, like there goes that, like better start looking at where else I'm going to go to school. But then luckily Coach Luce, John Luce, kept talking to my coach from high school, and they ended up offering me as a snapper to go to the prep school first. So I went to the prep school in 2014 to 2015, and then into the academy following that.
Yeah. Scott, I forgot about kind of the pedigree you have in your family with your uncles, right? I mean, your uncle Mike played, he played some, he played in the NFL. He played for the Dallas Cowboys, and your uncle Dave was a good, really good college football player too, right? I mean, so how much of that was in the back of your head when you're kind of, looking around your senior year and saying, hey, maybe kind of following the paths of possibly your uncles to a point?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was really like the decision went into of like, I truly fell in love with the game my senior year. And that fire has just like never left me since then. And I remember like sitting there and being like, it was after I played in like the Section 9, like all-star game at Newburgh. And they had like a night where they had a bunch of like colleges there, like some D3. I think there's a couple D2 schools there, but I just walked around and I was like, I'm not done. Like I have more left in me. And that was when I mentioned it to my coach, and like Coach Jim Wright, he was the one that helped me get recruited. Like, I'm thankful. Like everyone that's helped me along the way, it's crazy how things have just like fallen into place. And I've had like a great support system from my family. Like I have an amazing girlfriend, Jasmine. Like she pushes me every day. Like when the Army stuff gets rainy and we're on the field, and she's just like the first one when I get out, she's like, yeah, you can complain to me, but you did it. Like, I don't know why you're complaining. Like you crushed it. So she definitely puts life into perspective for me. My parents, definitely like the best support system. And then I have my niece and nephew, Noah and Lucy, and I'm actually going to be I have another niece or nephew. We don't know yet, coming in April. Actually opening weekend. So I'm really excited for that. And they're like, my nephew already told me, so Uncle Scotty, me and Daddy are coming to one of your games. I said, okay. So
that's all you need, man. Hey, when did you start long snapping? Like, when did you start doing that? How early do you start long snapping, and when do you start like thinking, okay, this is maybe something I can do really well and put in the extra time to do it? So
yeah, so as young as I can remember, when we were out in the yard, my mom wouldn't let me play football until I hit 7th grade. So I was like biting at the bit to play, and she wouldn't let me play youth football. I was actually a swimmer until then, and then 7th grade came and I was able to play. But ever since I was younger, my uncles, whenever they were up, they would always be like out in the yard throwing the ball around with us. My uncle Mike and Uncle Dave taught me and my brother Dan how to long snap, and they both said to us, they're like, if you want to play in college and you want to guarantee your spot on like any team or up your value, learn how to do this. And it wasn't until really like when I got recruited to play it in college, because in high school, like it was just something I did for my team because like I was the only one who really knew how to do it. When I got to college, that was when I like learned the art of like what it actually is. I went down to Arizona, got some lessons from Gary Zauner, who's a big special teams guy. My sophomore year, like my freshman year, during spring break, I went down there and trained. And then from that week on, it was just like I dedicated myself to like understanding actually what goes into it, which has helped me tremendously in like coaching younger athletes. I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing dudes. The Alabama snapper, Neil Inhibit, a guy at Clemson who's I don't know if he's going to start this year or not. I don't know what their depth chart looks like, but he's like amazing. Holden Casperson, just great dudes that I've gotten a chance to like work with and alongside of that have made me better and just helped me understand the game better as far as long snapping goes. But yeah, ever since I can remember doing it in the yard, and then from that moment on, as far as my sophomore year goes, like that was when I was like, this is an art that I need to like learn and become perfect at, essentially.
Yeah, I remember I went to a kick punt long snapping camp one year when I was like, I don't know, probably like 7th, 8th grade. And I kicked a punt. I didn't long snap, but like when I was younger, right, I just had a strong leg, so they just put me out there to kick. I used to toe punch. I actually have a funny story at prep school. I kicked the 50-yarder at prep school, toe punching in practice. Our kicker couldn't believe it. But at that camp was when I was introduced to long snapping. And what you said was exactly what was told to me was, if you want to separate yourself from just another linebacker or just another running back or just another DN, right? Try long snapping, right? Try long snapping. And I tried it, and I was just like, look, I just don't like this. I'm not doing it. So, like, that was my mentality for it. But a teammate of mine, right, did do it, and he was a pretty good football player, pretty good high school football player. Was getting looked at by colleges, no solid offers, but he got an offer to be a long snapper, and he took it. So, you know, what you're saying is it cannot be more truer that you just open up another door for yourself, especially if you're a naturally explosive guy in high school. So can you talk to us about what your times were when you snapped in high school to get to West Point, but then how much better you got at West Point to where you got drafted for the UCFL?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, in high school, like I could go back and pull I don't even know like what my times really were. I just know I could put it on him. Like he'd stand back there and I'd hit him right in the chest basically every single time.
Right. So you were just your accuracy was what you really had in high school. So don't really know a time, but you knew you were hitting that guy in between his numbers every time. And that was did you do punt and field goal?
I did both, yeah, punt and field goal all the way through.
Okay. So your aim point's a little different for those two, right?
Yeah, so for punt, your aim point is like ideally it's the right hip, but when you're in high school, it's like if you can hit him right in the chest, if he misses it, it's going to hit him in the chest. So
yeah.
So right now, my aim point for punt is the right hip or left hip if it's a left-footed punter. just depending on what they prefer. And then for field goal, when the holder's down, he's got that finger on the ground for where the spot's going to be. That back elbow basically is where you're aiming at. So because if you put it right there, ideally his hand's going to be in the same general area. He's going to bring that other hand up. And then field goal, the big thing too is like the laces. So judging where he's catching the ball every time, that's going to judge where I set myself to make sure that we're getting perfect laces, or I set the ball to make sure that when he catches it, he gets perfect laces every time.
What you talking about, man? You can't long snap perfect laces. That's not a real thing, is it?
So on punt snaps, the ball should do 3 full rotations, and the punter should catch it generally on top of it.
You ever heard anything like this?
Never.
This is some cool stuff, man. I just thought it was all up to the holder or the fucking the punter to figure it out. So okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. This is some new stuff. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so like punts, it's a little bit less of a big deal because like the punter's going to mold the ball anyway, and you don't want the ball to be perfect laces when he catches it, because usually when they catch it and the laces are up, they get really excited, and that's when they like mess something else up. So you want your snap to be like where the laces are a little bit off to one side for a punt, so they mold and then they punt the ball. And then for field goal, those laces you want them up every time, because think about how much that saves the holder and the kicker. Like if the kicker's coming for the kick every time and he's seeing the laces back at him and they have to rotate away, like that's a scary thought as a kicker when you're looking at your spot and you're seeing laces. So it's like that movie with Ace Ventura, I think it is, where it's like laces out Marino or something like that. But if the holder catches it and those laces are already up or generally up, all he's got to do is like take it and put it down right on the spot.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys rep this and rep this and rep this. So the kicker has to know just to kick the ball, regardless of where the laces are when he sees it. But it's still
trust it. Yep.
It's still a mental thing, right? Because if 9 times out of 10 the laces are good, right, and then that 10th one he sees it, I mean, that's just like anything. Like, I'm a huge Baltimore Ravens fan, so I get the pleasure of watching old Alto Mattuck kick the ball, which is awesome. But Coke, the punter, right, is his holder. So same kind of stuff there. But so all right. So back to you. The timing from when you opened up at West Point, the first time you remember ever being told what you remember the coaches telling you, because it's always pretty good, like, Matt, that's not good, you suck, or this is where we need to get to, and then how much better you needed to get there, and then what you really focused on how to improve your time.
Yeah, so I remember sitting in Coach Monken's office specifically, and him being like, all right, because I was struggling a little. I was pulling him left a lot, the punter, and it was bad because I was pulling him out of the shield, like out of the back of the shield. And he said, I don't really know much about snapping a football, but all I know is, and he drew a picture of a person on paper, and he said, you're putting the ball here, and we need it here. And he said, so whatever you got to do to fix it, I need you to fix it before the season. And I was like, no problem, coach. And then that was when right before I went to Arizona to train with Coach Downer. So it worked out really well because I came back in this fall and I was just throwing darts. So
but what was it? What did you learn and what did you take away from Arizona? That was it your left hand was guiding or your right hand was guiding, or what exactly did you learn that, because you can learn something, right, but you can't implement it necessarily, right? Somebody can tell me all day what cover 3 is, but if I don't know how to actually get there, that's a problem. So what were you coached, and then how did you turn that coaching tip into actual action?
Yeah. So when I was working out with him, I remember first of all, I was so nervous. This is the first time I was self-taught until this point. It's like I've never had like a snapping coach. And I remember I was warming up and I was at like 10 yards. I couldn't get the ball off the ground. Like it was literally just rolling back there basically. And I was like, what the hell? And he was just watching me And what I was doing was I was kind of just like pushing the ball back instead of throwing the ball back, which essentially when you're underneath, you're throwing the ball through your legs. Like that's all a long snap is. And that other hand is just to guide it to make sure it goes exactly where you want it to go. And it helps put some zip on the ball because you got some more like leverage on it. But what I was doing is I was kind of pushing the ball, and that was giving me like an inconsistent finish with my hands. And also I was like right hand dominant. So I wasn't really using enough of my left hand to guide it right. And then he also pointed out to me, if you take a picture, so if you're standing as like the middle linebacker across from me, and he took a picture of like my shoulders, and my shoulders were kind of canted. Like I was all twisted because of how my hand was on the ball. And all he did was, instead of having my middle finger down that back seam, he said, just use your pointer finger instead. And he's like, it's going to feel weird, but I want to see something. So moved my pointer finger there, and he took another picture, and it was like flat as could be. Like my shoulders were perfect. I wasn't all torqued up and weird.
One finger.
Yeah, that's it.
Just
move
my
hand
finger
over.
and you straighten your body out.
Yeah, my ball's over there, but I could show you. But yeah, instead of having this down the seam on the other side, I just moved one finger over, and that untorqued my shoulders.
I need that adjustment for my back, Scott. My back, man. Can I just move
my
one?
brother-in-law's a chiropractor and my sister-in-law, so.
All right, keep going.
But yeah, and then he also had me. I had the ball flat on the ground before I'd snap it, like really on like the curved part of the ball. And he's like, no, you got to get the ball up on the point more, up on the nose of the football, and it'll just make the snap happen more naturally. He's like, all I want you to do is, and some people call this a hitch. It's only a hitch if you're coming like forward first, but you pick it up and you throw it through, because you got to pick it up to get that clearance off the ground. Otherwise, you're just going to scrape it. But he's like, all I want you to do is get down, pick it up, and then throw it to me through your legs. And that's what I did. And we did that for like an hour and a half. And then we went and watched some film. He was like, all right. It's like, I'm pretty cooked today. We came back the next day and just kept working the stuff that he had taught me the day before. And from that point on was like, that was when I was like, I need to really start learning what I'm doing and working on things every single day. And it worked out. Like I said, I came in that fall and I was shooting darts. So I was pretty excited about it.
All right. So there was never a discussion. I just remember when I played Army football. I can't remember if it was. So Joe Ross was actually our special teams coach when I was there for a little bit, and I can't remember if it was him or Coach Ellerson, but I just remember them just crushing the snapper one day. They got, it's too slow. It's too slow. I need you to be at 1 point, whatever. I can't have 1 point there. I need 1 point there. Right. So do you remember any of those numbers, or was it?
So
always,
I know what all my numbers are now.
Huh?
I know what all my numbers are now. Like back then.
But I'm talking about then, or was it just like, look, I'm just trying to snap this as hard as I can, as straight as I can, and hopefully the numbers work out.
Yeah. So like for me, it was. Luckily, I don't know if it was because I had like good levers for arms or what, but speed was never really like an issue for me on my snaps. Like if I wasn't at my strongest point, maybe I would lose like a couple hundredths of a second. But for the most part, like I've always been at least a 0.75 guy as far as like snap to catch. And if I got slower than that, it was just because I was like fatigued, or it was like toward the end of practice. But usually like I was, like I said, I don't know what went into it, but I think like earlier you mentioned like just being like a naturally like explosive person. Power clean's always been my best lift. So like I think that just all ties into the snap. And I don't know if it's because of snapping or what, but all through college, like it's been my favorite lift and my best one my whole career. So I think just having that explosiveness, like speed was never really something I had to worry about. It was more just fine tuning the accuracy. But yeah, every time I get down, especially field goal is a little bit more finesse. Like I said, with those laces and where you're putting it, because it's not like a punt. I get down there and I rip that thing as hard as I can every single time. my goal is to burn a hole through the punter's hip, and that gives the punter more time on his end to get the punt off. And that's why the times are so critical. So for a field goal, 1.25 is like ideal total operation for a field goal. So from the time I snap to the time that kick gets off, 1.25 is like you're no later than time. Like it's got to get off before that. And that's because of like the rush and just the timing of everything. That's like the sweet spot. Punt, 0.75 and faster, you could get away with 0.8, but usually 0.75 and faster is your sweet zone, because your punter ideally has 1.2 to 1.25 seconds to get his kickoff. So as soon as he catches it, 1-2 off, like that should be less than 1.25 seconds. So it just gives, the more time I can take off my snap, the more time that gives the punter to get his kickoff. So 2 seconds for the total operation.
Scott, we have a question from somebody that you know well, a person who's watching right now about technique or the position. Does it make a difference to a holder or punter if the snapper is right or left-handed? Is there a different rotation?
So the ball definitely rotates differently. It's rotating in the opposite direction if it's a lefty. And I'll be honest, like as a snapper, if I see a dude that snaps lefty and I don't realize that he's a lefty at first, as soon as that ball comes out, I'm like, ooh, that didn't look right. And then I look and I'm like, oh, okay, he's a lefty. But the rotation, as far as the rotations and the distance, like it's going to look different to the holder when he's catching it, of the ball coming from a lefty as opposed to a righty. But as far as the rotations and everything, like it should all be the same. If you're keeping everything the same speed every time and the holder's catching it in the same spot every time, that guy's going to get laces up from his snaps, as long as he just stays as consistent as possible with his speed and everything.
We had we used to, so the first year Coach Ellerson took over, we switched quarterbacks, and it was Chip Bowden, who was a left-handed quarterback, and our receivers used to always say, we can't catch his balls, it's rotating differently. And Chip used to always be like, yeah, I'm left-handed, so you just got to get used to it. It used to be, but it was always a joke where you know they really could catch his balls and stuff. It was so different from, you know, most of these guys catch from a right-hander their entire careers, and then a lefty throws it to you, and it's like you said, like, oh, that looks a little off. It's not off. It's just coming out of a different way. So
yeah, the rotations go in the opposite direction. So just think about, if you're used to catching something rotating one way your whole life, and then it's rotating the other way, it's gonna feel weird when it's coming in.
How about this question, Scott? Have you ever drilled a dude in the face when he wasn't ready for the snap, or drilled a coach in the face?
No. So I actually talked about this the other day to somebody. Zach Potter was my buddy who I'd warm up with. He was our 50-yard and in punter, because he could pin them deep really well. And one time we were out of practice and I was warming up, and I always look first to make sure they're looking. He was looking at me. And from the time I picked my head up to get ready to snap, and I, like, from seeing him and then picking my head up to snap, he turned his head this way and was looking at something. Well, it wasn't in his face, but I sent one of the best snaps I've ever had, and it hit him right between the legs, and he
right in the nuts,
felt
man.
it. He felt it. And I looked and I was like, "You were looking at me."
That's got to be one of the worst. The tip of a football right in the gonads is got to be one of the worst things, especially coming from a long snapper who's putting it on, you know, putting some speed on that thing. That sounds terrible.
Yeah,
you said Zach Potter?
Yeah.
Is he your group?
He is, yeah. He's at Fort Campbell right now.
Oh, nice. I commanded at Fort Campbell, so that's
Okay.
good. Do you have a wife, girlfriend? You make sure that you can, you know, everything's still working okay?
Oh yeah, he's married now. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the wedding, but yeah, he's married.
That's good, man. That's awesome. What brigade is he in? I'm gonna have to hit him up.
I'm not sure.
There's only one brigade, so
yeah, I'm pretty sure he's in Roxanne, but I'm not sure.
There we go. All right, cool.
Hey, Scott, I mean, once you get, you know, you go to Arizona, you get some coaching and snapping, and then you come back and you say you're snapping probably the best that you have that preseason. Now, I'm sure you're going to get the nod for your first game. Can you walk us through what that was like? Because, you know, being local, I don't know if you've seen games at Mikey Stadium, Well, I mean, what was that like for you to prepare for your first game? And talk to us a little bit about your experience the first time.
Yeah, my first start was at Temple, and actually in the Philadelphia Eagles Stadium. And I remember I was super nervous, but I had some family that were in that area that came down, and it was great. They like huge sport, but the first home game, I think my entire hometown was at the game, which was like awesome. And I'll never forget like the first time my jersey was a little small on me. So I was looking up at the board and I was like, ooh, a little thick. But I remember seeing my name pop up in like my intro video. And I was like, it was cool to see reap the benefits of everything I had been working toward over that past year. But I knew that that was only like the beginning of it. So I had to keep going.
That Temple game you're talking about was the season opener. That was really a game that started this Army renaissance, right? I mean, you guys were able to beat Temple. I covered that game. Man, the locker room after that game was euphoric. I mean, I was in the press room waiting for the players to come out, and you could hear "I'm Brave Old Army" team probably through the halls of Lincoln Financial Field. What was that like to have your first game and have that experience where, hey, Army was scoring, getting into the end zone. It's up to you to put some snaps right on point so you guys can get 7.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I'll say is like it was less the snap and more the 2 defensive tackles across from me. That was like for me the biggest thing. And I trusted my guards, but our field goal protection at that point was like we would come up and I would like punch, and everybody was doing that on the line. And if you look at that game on the film, like I was checking the cloud coverage a lot. So it was good. But one thing I'll say is it's a joke I always make with the boys. It's like we started that run kind of then, and I always say like, well, I mean, we didn't start winning until I got pulled up to varsity. So, correlation, causation, decide for you. But yeah,
dude, honestly, trips to the White House, hoisting the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, it wasn't a bad life for you as a football player at West Point.
It was a great experience. I'm thankful for every moment I had and everybody I met along the way. I've had lifelong friends I've met out of that program. Darnell Wolfel, Kalen Holt, Landon Salyers, Mitch Howard, Clay Barton, JD Moat. Just I could name 100 names for you. Like,
yeah, man, it's the brotherhood, right? Like, Scott, I'm literally talking to you for the first time ever in the life, and dude, I'm legitimately interested. I'm invested. I love learning about Army football players. It's the brotherhood, man. I'm basically a decade older than you, but it doesn't like it goes so far. The long gray line is long, and the Army football brotherhood is long. So I completely understand what you're saying with lifelong friends and what you experienced at the academy and what you guys went through. Super special. Never got to hold the Commanders-in-Chief. Never beat Air Force. Never beat Navy. Won a bowl game. And that was basically the highlight of Army football for that decade, right? So you got all these highs from Army football, right? And you got a commission. You're going to try out. You get drafted, right? So what is Scott? What is your path now?
So this is like uncharted waters for like no one's ever really had to do this as far as like my understanding. But
Scott, I'll stop you right there. I find it very hard to believe because everybody's done everything in the Army. You know
right.
what I mean?
I'm saying like at my point in my career, like where I'm at. And we're just like still figuring everything out. I worked with Dan McCarthy a lot on it. Colonel retired Dan McCarthy, who's the assistant athletic director now. He really helped me understand like what the process would be. So essentially I will switch over to like a reserve status and fill the rest of my commitment in the reserves, which I was telling Sal earlier. I've talked to the reserve coordinator, hopefully with West Point, so I'll be able to work with the staff up there and give back as much as I can.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Scott, I've got a really good buddy. I don't know if you've ever heard the name Josh McNary.
Yep.
But Josh, when we were going through it, we still had 2 years of active service before we could go play in the pros.
Yep.
Sounds like you're right about that time, right? You're right about 2 years, maybe
correct.
2 years.
Yep, correct.
Yeah. So I've got Josh's packet in my inbox, still in my Gmail, from when I tried out for the NFL in 2014. But definitely after this, I'll get your number from Sal. And I'm sure you got it all figured out. But Josh did the exact same thing. Okay. He owed 5, but we had this like waiverable going to the reserves thing.
Yep.
Type deal that was allotted to us after we served 2 full years of active.
Same exact thing.
And then basically, it was 2 years, and then you had 6 left because you technically owe 8 with
right.
5 active, 3 reserves.
Right.
So I know you're doing all the right things. Sometimes it just helps to talk to a brother who's gone through it. I'll get your number from Sal. I'll shoot you Josh's number. I'll send Josh a note and just to kind of talk you through the process, because he ended up signing with the Colts.
Yep. I know Josh's name.
Yeah.
When I was coming in, he was kind of like, that was when he started his big thing.
So anyway, that's good, man. So yeah, I mean, that's always been my goal in the Army, is to somehow give back to Army football, because there's no doubt. Like, I came into West Point as like 18-year-old like boy, right? I was not
same.
I was not. I was selfish. I was, egotistical. I was basically like, I'm here to go pro, and everybody else is just here to watch me do it, right? So that place, maybe through my mentors and through some trials and tribulations, it turned me into a little more of a, bored of man. And that's all I want to do. I want to give back, man. And I know just hearing you talk about what transformation you made through West Point, ideally, right, you're back there, you're giving camps at West Point, you're helping out with the special teams, you're doing camps for the high school players, right? You're from that area, right? That'd be like, that's a dream reserve opportunity for you, man. So that's awesome. And it's really cool that's what you want to do with your reserve time. So again, it just shows you that, at the end of the day, you're still selfless. And even though you got this great opportunity, you'll continue to build on it. I don't doubt that if you continue this drive, right, that, okay, now you're in the UCFL and you want to keep going, right? There's no doubt you'll be playing on Sundays on the big stage sooner or later.
Yeah, that's the goal. And like, I always tell my family too, my thing isn't what I accomplish or I do. Like, I do it because, like, yeah, it's like what I love to do and what I chase. But what I get out of it is when I get to work with those middle school and high school kids trying to get into college, trying to chase their dream, because I know how much fun I had playing in college and doing it. So I want to give as many other people that opportunity as I possibly can, whether that's at the Division III level or Division I level, it doesn't matter. I just want to help as many dudes get to their goal as possible.
But also, right, Scott, you've got a great story, right? I was self-taught, got Division I scholarship, somehow throwing a ball 10 yards, 14 yards, 7 yards, right? Finally, and right, Scott, you didn't go down to Arizona and was like, well, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but this is how I've always done it, and I'm doing pretty good at it, right? You didn't have that attitude. So, one, you've got the humility, right, that you can put upon these high school players, these middle school players, even these college players now. I hate to tell you, Scott, you're an old grad, man.
I know.
You help out college players now, brother.
Think about that very often.
All right. So, you're not, you're not a college football player anymore, man. So you can help at the college level. And the fact that you had the humility, right, that you just said, look, I gotta figure this out. And you listen to someone and look at where it's brought you, just the coaching tips. I mean, I know you've been coached multiple times since then, right? But that was kind of the starting point. And you're that guy that's from New York, that's going to help recruiting West Point. It's going to get guys. And I love hearing the story, man. Like, I'm from a small town in Maryland, and I try to get back to that area. Coach Beatty used to recruit MD. I used to send him players all the time that were like me, 5'10", undersized linebackers that can play ball. I think like one's worked out, I think, unfortunately, but
maybe that one. That's all it takes. That one.
Shit.
Hey, let's talk about the USFL now, Scott, real quick. So when the news comes out that you first got drafted, right? I'm like, oh man, this is great. New Jersey Generals. He's going to be playing, close to home. He's going to be playing maybe in MetLife. Who knows where they're going to be playing? But find out that all the games are in Birmingham, right?
Yeah. So the whole league is going to be in Birmingham this year. And I mean, for me, it's great because that's where my coach is, like my actual snapping coach now is and everything. So I'm like, I got a bunch of buddies there. I got my coaches there. Like, I'm in the best environment I could be in, especially for my first year. But yeah, the whole league will be in Birmingham this year. And then next year, I believe the plan is to branch out to their respective cities. So if I end up playing in it again next year, if they want to re-sign me for next year, I would play in New Jersey, I believe, but I'm not totally sure on that.
Well, you're not going to give him a choice, Scott, right? Not going to give him a choice. They're going to have to re-sign you for
exactly
play this year. That's right.
Well, there was a question about, when the league ends, when the USFL league ends, and I'm guessing it probably ends around before training camp start in the NFL, right? So Is that maybe the goal to maybe show up a little bit in the USFL and maybe get an opportunity to get into a training camp in the NFL?
Yeah. So for me, and this goes back to just like what Steve was saying, like my story or my path. Like coming out of college when Eli and Cole got signed and Connor went for his tryout, like we never got to have a pro day because we were scheduled to do it March 22nd, and COVID happened during spring break and we never came back. So I never really got the chance to show anything in front of anybody. So that gridiron in January was my first chance. And I got this amazing opportunity now. So my goal is, to come into this, give NFL teams a live look at like, hey, holy crap, this kid's actually like good. Not like, oh, well, we don't really have film on him. Like this is my opportunity to show that I am as talented as I think I am, and that I want to be playing on Sundays. That is the overall goal. So.
Yeah, and Scott, I've got quite a few buddies, and then I've got a couple mentors that are coaching at the NFL level. Actually, one of my really good friends retired today from the NFL. I'll leave Illinois with Martin.
I saw that.
And I had a great conversation with him today. And, you saw, Cole Christensen made it out on special teams, right? And now he was getting linebacker spots. So 100% those opportunities are going to be there for you. One of my biggest mentors and one of the people I respect most in the world just took a job with the Minnesota Vikings, the assistant special team coach for the Vikings, Ben Kowika. And just like for the UCFL and kind of through college, right, your networking has helped you, and it'll only continue to help you because, like you said, didn't get a pro day, right? Sometimes you just need to get that foot
exposure,
in the door, that tryout, right? All you need is that tryout, you'll do the rest, right? Like that's all you can ask for. Hey, just give me a ticket to the show. And I'll put it on, right?
Yeah.
And that's the mentality I love hearing from you, man, because that's all you're asking for, man. Like, hey, no special favors, no, hey, if I don't make the cut, I don't make the cut. But hey, let me show up. Let me get to the show and let me show you. And I promise you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, 100%. And when everything kind of went through, I talked to my uncle about it, and my uncle Mike, and he said to me, he looked at me, and he's like, "Well, it's all up to you now. Like, you're in." He's like, I helped all I could. He's like, now it's just on you. He's like, I was like, yeah, and I'm excited.
And you want it that way, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's it's like an athlete's dream. Like, hey, man, just give me the opportunity. I don't want any favors. Because look, if the UCFL is anything like the NFL, right? Like, it's not for long, right? And it's a business, and all those guys treat it like a business.
Yeah.
Okay. It's very much depending on the, from what I hear, it's similar to the military, right? Like, it's very high discipline. There's a schedule. You're going to be there. If you're not there, you're going to get fined. Luckily, they can't find us in the military. But it's not a wonder why. When I was a young cadet, and I don't know if you ever got told this, Scott, but Army football is going to prepare you the best to be a combat arms officer. Okay,
100%.
No field training, no academic course, nothing you're going to read, no military history. Army football is going to prepare you to be the best kind of, hands-on, caring leader, but tough, especially in the infantry. Think about it. This mentality you had, right? If you can impose that on all your infantrymen that you lead, right? It's only makes the Army better.
Yeah. And that's what I'll say.
It's actually been, I definitely learned some stuff tonight on the snapping the ball and the importance of it. But more importantly, man, I'm so glad I got to meet and talk to you, because this is a story I've never heard before. I didn't really know a lot about it. And I'm going to be following your journey through the UCFL and the NFL from here on forth. And I hope you got a big brother in me anytime. Like I said, I'm going to get your number. I'm going to reach out. You'll get my number. And we'll keep in touch, because this is a cool thing that you're going through. And look, best of luck, brother.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Absolutely. April 16th, I believe, is the opener for the New Jersey Generals against the Birmingham Stallions. I know the games are going to be on like Peacock, and they're going to be, available where you can watch these games. So, hey, let's hope for a couple up. Scott, playing for Army, right? There weren't a lot of punt opportunities at times for Army, right? Monken liked to go for it a lot.
Yeah, you should have played in 2009, 2008, Scott. It would have been great.
Let's hope that Mike Riley will want to punt on like a 4th and 2 or something like that every once more often. So
I'm hoping for a lot of PATs.
There you go. There's more, and here's one more time. Christian says he hopes you snap for the Chiefs someday. So
yeah, no,
yeah. You know what, Scott? With all due respect to your Uncle Mike, just not the Cowboys. Anybody but the Cowboys, Scott. With all due respect to your Uncle Mike.
Yeah, that's my favorite question. People are like, "Oh, what team would you want to play for?" I'm like, "Whoever's going to pay me, whoever signs a paycheck."
There you go, man. Hey, it's been great. Like Steve said, The Art of Long Snapping by Scott Flanick. And then we get to I knew a little bit of your story. So, everybody gets to hear your story. I didn't know that you were mostly self-taught. That's great. And now this opportunity, man, I hope everything goes well for you, and we can have you on the Black Knight Nation podcast soon. It's been great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you. I would love to go later on the season and revisit this. I enjoyed this a lot. So thank you guys for the opportunity.
Yeah. Scott, best of luck, brother. Who you guys open up against?
The Birmingham Stallions. So
right,
we're the first game of the season.
Right?
Yep.
All right, brother. Take care, all right?
Yep. You too.
Thanks for joining us, guys. And you can find all our podcasts on our YouTube channel at Black Knight Nation. Take a look. We just had Joel Davis on. That was a very entertaining 2 hours, to say the least, Steve. And Steve, we have a lot more in the plans, maybe even this weekend. So guys, stay tuned. This is just the start for the Black Knight Nation podcast. We're in high gear after a little bit of a hiatus. Have a good night.